Hey everyone, as you guys know, I am an official G Fuel sponsor, and they just sent me 2 brand new flavors to try out and unbox for you guys to support the film Venom, Let There Be Carnage. So there's 2 new flavors. I believe it is Black Ooze and Red Ooze. Now I have not tried them, so this is kind of like an unboxing video, if you will. But they come in can form, if you're into cans and whatnot. Me personally, when it comes to G Fuel, I've gotten really used to the water and powder mixtures. So I'm gonna try first this one right here. These are combo shaker packs that you can get on G Fuel's website currently. I'm gonna try this one. This is the Black Ooze Venom G Fuel. It's very good. I don't know. It's kind of like a fruit punch-ish with a little, but not as, but how do I describe it? It's sweet, but not too sweet. It's a fruit, a lessened sweetened fruit punch. Now I'm gonna try the Red Ooze flavor. Okay, so this one is doubling down on the fruit punch and is a lot more sweet. I don't want to say I taste the color red, but you know those drinks when you were a kid when you drink like a red juice? That's what this tastes like. This is very delicious. This might be actually my new favorite flavor of G Fuel, finally toppling some of my other favorite flavors. So yeah, limited time only. You can pick this up at gfuel.com. Shout outs to Venom, Let There Be Carnage for sponsoring this social post and all that fun stuff. There you guys go. Check it out. There are a million different ways to love Spider-Man these days. Movies, both live action and animated, decades worth of comics, and an equally large assortment of video games that range from slapdash movie tie-ins to the massive AAA titles that Insomniac is putting out currently. Which means that you can basically map out the entire graphical and technological development of games through just Spider-Man titles, racing all the way back to old school beat-em-ups like Spider-Man and Venom Maximum Carnage. Maximum Carnage is based on the comic book arc of the same name. And for lots of people, this was the first really noticeable instance of the worlds of comic books and games colliding. But just because everyone loves Spider-Man doesn't mean that you have to love every game or movie that features him. And I've always found this game to be incredibly frustrating. Not that I hold it against Spider-Man though. He's obviously still the best. But this game is, well, not. Hey everyone, and welcome to an all-new episode of the Completionist New Game Plus, the show where I'm recompleting the original 120 games I ever featured here on the channel. Look, I'll be pretty upfront about the fact that I don't love Maximum Carnage, and got pretty frustrated the first time around. I didn't have a ton to say about it either back then, and I'm still not sure that I do today. But the reason I'm excited is that originally I was challenged to complete this game by the good dudes over at Continue. We didn't know each other super well back then, but in the years since, we've become close friends, in spite of the fact that they made me complete this game. So, with that, I thought it'd be great to have them here on the show for the first time ever. Ladies and gentlemen, Continue. How's it going, guys?
We're good, Gerard. How are you?
I'm good. Are you gonna talk like that the whole time? It's kind of unsettling.
Oh, sorry. Is this better?
It's definitely not better, but it's still great to see you guys.
Sorry about that. We are glad to be back.
Definitely. We can't wait to talk to you about this classic game that you definitely will love.
You absolutely hold zero grudges for us picking this a couple of years ago, right?
I don't think so, but ask me again after I fight Carnage, and we'll see how I go.
Fair enough. Ew, why are we doing that? Whoa, weird!
And the battle continues! This could turn it all around! This bout will determine who is the strongest once and for all!
When it was originally released for both the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, Maximum Carnage was printed on red cartridges. You know, because Carnage is red. Later printings would abandon this, but it's clear they were trying to appeal to Spider-Man fans by tying this game specifically to Carnage himself, who was the platonic ideal of a 90s edgelord comic book villain, by virtue of the fact that he was basically made out of knives.
But the big selling point was the fact that Maximum Carnage was the first game based specifically on a comic book storyline, rather than just taking comic book characters and plugging them into something generic. The game directly lifts panels and dialogue from the comic in order to tell the story, and features cameos and appearances from a wide range of comic book heroes and villains.
All your favorites are here, like Captain America, or Black Cat, or Cloak and Dagger, or Morbius, I guess.
Don't forget Iron Fist. Everybody loves Iron Fist.
God, this guy with Iron Fist.
Back when you guys first challenged me to play this game, I'll admit that I didn't really care about the comic book connectivity. But now that I'm a bit more familiar with Spider-Man, Venom, and their supporting cast, I still mostly don't care. It feels like they were trying specifically to appeal to hardcore 90s comic book nerds, but still molded that story into a fairly standard beat-em-up.
And because it has way less time to work with, it basically adapts just the bare bones version of the story, in which Carnage gathers together a squad of C-list villains and starts causing a bunch of carnage throughout New York, which means that Spider-Man has to team up with Venom to beat him, which was a big deal back then before we associated Venom with lovable Tom Hardy anti-hero shenanigans.
But in Maximum Carnage, the player can play as either Spider-Man, who is quicker, or Venom, who is stronger, but it's still a single-player game. So the whole team-up aspect is purely theoretical, even though the two characters play slightly differently.
It's kind of a bummer that there's no co-op component when the game really seems to call for it, but Gerard, you love beat-em-ups, so surely you'll do fine.
Whoa, not so fast, guys. It's true that I love beat-em-ups, but the couch co-op elements is a pretty big part of why. And also, even though this game is fairly standard in its beat-em-up gameplay, it doesn't mean it's easy. In fact, it's the opposite of easy. It's hard as And the last time you challenged me to play it, even though it didn't take up too many hours, it still pushed me to the edge of my sanity and built up a resentment and grudge that I hold to this day.
Wait, what?
Just kidding about that last part. Probably. But I definitely still remember the frustration this game caused, and I'm hoping to blast through it as quickly as possible again, since all they have to do is beat the story and find the secret rooms with extra lives and power-ups and such. Even though I'm kind of annoyed at having to play it again, I'm glad that it's giving me an excuse to hang out with some cool kick-ass dudes.
Like me.
And me.
And Morbius, the living vampire.
Yeah, sure. Him too. Pretty upfront about the fact that I do not particularly enjoy this game, but I still think it's a fun one for you guys to have challenged me to do, because it helps spotlight the cool differences between the way we approach games on our channels. You try them out and see if you'd like to keep playing them, while I basically hold myself and the game hostage until I'm done. So I was wondering if you guys wanted to maybe talk a little bit about why you chose this particular game and what your experiences with it have been.
Being into comic books in the early 90s was not like it is now, with comic books jumping into every medium.
If you were into comics, you basically had 2 Batman movies, a Spider-Man cartoon, an X-Men cartoon, which is awesome, and some terrible video games. Looking at you, Silver Surfer.
When this game came out, it was a pretty big deal for our grade school brains. Yo, you guys hear about that new Spider-Man game?
Spider-Man in a video game and not in a comic book?
Yeah, dude, it's based off of Maximum Carnage.
The current run of Spider-Man where the edgy serial killer Carnage goes on a killing spree and Spider-Man has to team up with Venom, his mortal enemy?
Yeah, dude, and you can play as Spider-Man and Venom.
Venom, the lethal protector brain eater, is in a video game?
Yeah, and it's on SNES. And get this, the cartridge is red.
No way. Red? That's the devil's color.
And Carnage's color.
And my hair color.
Did somebody just Ocean's 11 into my preteen brain and pull out a video game?
I'm gonna go ask my mom for $60 $1994, because that's how much video games cost back then, to spend on this game immediately.
I can't hear you. I'm still doing the part, man.
I can definitely see the appeal in picking up this game for a few minutes if you love either Spider-Man or beat-em-ups. But Spider-Man's depiction in the world of games has just kept growing and evolving since then, not just since the game came out, but even since the original video we did. And there are so many things to compare it to that I think it only further highlights my biggest issue with the game, the fact that the Spider-Man vibe is in direct conflict with the classic beat-em-up vibe.
Admittedly, audiences are now inundated with Spider-Man content, including big-budget games that are all about capturing the incredibly specific feeling of using webs for both combat and traversal.
That's something that was basically impossible to do on the SNES and Genesis, so almost everything in this game that captures those feelings is unrelated to the gameplay. Instead, it comes in the form of cameos from other heroes and specific comic book panels.
But a game and a comic are super different mediums, so there's a weird, sluggish vibe to the cutscenes in this game. And it doesn't come close to recreating the investment a reader would feel from actually picking up a Spider-Man comic.
I'm also sure that there was way more novelty to seeing those characters and moments pop up in a pre-MCU world before everyone expected to see characters crossing over with each other all the time. But here, there's not really more to it other than being like, oh look, it's Deathlok, everyone's favorite D-list Marvel cyborg. Okay, I didn't actually have anything against Deathlok, but I didn't particularly care back when I first played this game, and in the context of this game, I still don't. And I think that's largely because those things aren't really able to express themselves through gameplay. The enemies are mostly waves of generic goons, and even the bosses fail to sell me on why it's cool that these villains are all here. Hell, even playing as Spider-Man and Venom feels largely the same.
Yeah, it does feel like the cutscenes and cameos are trying to capture a very comic-specific feeling, and just not quite able to. I can see why it would have been cool in 1994, because I was alive then, but Spider-Man games just weren't there yet.
Even the soundtrack, which was recorded by the band Green Jelly, is cooler in theory than in execution. It had to be scaled down and computerized for the SNES Genesis, which results in it sounding generic, even though it was specifically written and recorded for this game.
But probably the biggest aspect in which expectations and reality butt up against each other is in the gameplay. This is an adaptation of a major comic book team-up, but doesn't allow for the feeling of teaming up with your friends to play it.
Honestly, I think that's a huge part of it. Even generic beat-em-ups are fun when you can sit down on a couch with friends and play them together. And although playing on Twitch helped to capture a small semblance of that feeling, I'm sure I would have had way more fun, for instance, if I could have played through this with you guys.
Aw, thanks, Gerard.
But I stand by the statement that the two major elements of this game end up kind of hurting each other. The beat-em-up elements remove all the specificity that makes Spider-Man so iconic, while the attempt at capturing that specificity through directly adapting comic book stories and moments just ends up milking everything around it and making it feel even more generic. And it's not something I necessarily hold against the game. They did web slinging and wall crawling about as well as I think is possible given what they had at their disposal, but it wasn't enough to really make me feel like I was playing a great Spider-Man game or even a great beat-em-up.
Gerard, just admit it. The real reason you don't like this game is because it's hard, and we challenged you to a game that kicked your butt.
Yeah, which I'm pretty sure makes us your arch nemesis. We're like the Venom to your Spider-Man.
Yeah, or your Iron Fist to your... He's on Netflix. I don't know whose guy is in that. Soft Fist? I don't know.
Copper Fist?
I'm not so sure about that last one, but that Venom metaphor actually kind of tracks. I'll always bear that slightest bit of malice towards you guys for making me complete this game, but now we get to team up to kick this game's butt, which I guess makes the game Carnage?
Yeah, Maximum Carnage.
Ugh, I walked into that one. But yes, and the fact that, much like in the original video, we're mostly just doing dumb bits, goes a long way towards illustrating how little I have to say about this game. Because the main thing to say about completing it is that it's hard as hell. And even though it's short, I just wanted to blast through it and have it done as quick as possible.
Fortunately, there's not a huge amount of stuff to do. Some of the secret rooms are pretty well hidden, but that's what the internet's for. Which we didn't have in 1994, but you do now.
And the only other collectible to speak of are the items that summon the other heroes. So it's not like it takes a ton of time to track those down.
The challenge mostly comes down to the boss fights, especially the ones against Carnage, which makes sense because that guy's whole deal is that he's terrifying and extremely pointy.
He's so hard, you guys, and he makes it really important to collect as many lives and continues as possible throughout the game, because I really ended up needing them all. Honestly though, even more modern Spider-Man games seem to have a harder time making boss fights feel as cool and unique as they should. Spider-Man's powers are just easier to express creatively when fighting waves of goons than they are against someone like Carnage. In a beat 'em up like this, it's hard to communicate how scary he is outside of just making him super difficult. So his attacks are hard to dodge, and he just soaks up damage and takes forever to kill, which is definitely scary in some ways, but not necessarily, what's the word I'm looking for here?
Fantastic?
Amazing.
Spectacular.
I see what you did there. And yeah, all of those. But fortunately, I can think of 3 dudes that those words do apply to. Because even though I think this game fails to fully grab me as either a Spider-Man game or a beat 'em up, I'm still glad you guys challenged me to play it back then and came back again today to help me with this episode and listen to me complain.
No problem.
Anytime.
Iron Fist.
Hold on, you got 2 of them?
He's got 2 Iron Fists.
Iron Fists?
He's doing magic with his Iron Fist.
Oh, man.
I mentioned before that I wanted my second experience with this game to be over as quick as possible, which is one of a couple reasons that this last section is going to be super short. But also, there's just not really anything here in the way of collectibles or 100% bonuses, so I'm not even sure what to talk about.
Once a secret room is found, it's got some enemies in it that reward the player with additional power-ups, but that's it.
And getting all the hero assists doesn't unlock anything beyond the nerdy pride of being like, oh hey, Deathlok. I know who that is. Kind of.
Yeah, there really isn't anything else to speak of unless you count reading the Maximum Carnage comics, which I did, or seeing the Venom movies, which I did, as completion requirements.
I definitely don't. While I completed Spider-Man and Venom Maximum Carnage, there were 15 deaths, most of which still felt pretty unfair and came at the hands of Carnage. I don't really know if this was more or less than last time, but either way, it still sucks.
21 different levels done across 2 playthroughs since Venom and Spidey's levels diverge at a couple points. This means that a second playthrough is necessary just to do the areas that you didn't get to do the last time, even though they're pretty similar to each other.
8 Marvel heroes that can be summoned to help out, including the aforementioned Morbius, Iron Fist, everyone loves you, Deathlok, Cloak and Dagger, Captain America, Firestar, and Black Cat, all of whom are great to, varying degrees, except Iron Fist, who's amazing.
Yeah, numeral S rank right there, dude.
Yeah.
About 6 total hours of playtime, although I'm guessing from Gerard's tone that it felt like much longer than that.
It definitely did. And of course, 24 Spider-Man games that have been released since this one, most of which I recommend that you play before Maximum Carnage. Okay, fine, maybe not the mobile games, but my point is that there's so much better Spider-Man stuff out there that would be a better use of your time, and of my time, and of everyone's time. It's just better overall. Boom! I completed Maximum Carnage again, even though I didn't want to. There are way better Spider-Man games out there today, and way better beat-em-ups that you can actually play with friends, which I consider to be the whole point of the beat-em-up. Which reminds me, I want to thank the good dude to continue for joining me today for this episode. And someday soon, I hope we can gather on a couch with some controllers to play beat-em-ups the way that God intended.
We look forward to it, Gerard.
Oh God, we're doing it again!
Oh God, they're doing it again. Although actually, this might be perfect for the end of the show. So, with that in mind, guys, I still give this game my completionist rating of Look at it.
Iron Fist.
Look at it.